Hey there and welcome to another Scorching Guide. I plan on getting this out a bit earlier. I'm sorry for the delay. I've had various things come up. But anyway, it's coming out now. So, we've got 3 new fire Scorchings for each class. And on each class, they're kind of a bit hit and miss. They've got sort of 1 or 2 that are really good, and then the others which are kind of pointless. So, hopefully I'll be able to show that here, and you'll agree with me. One thing I do want to say first is the animations are top-notch. I really like the way these fire Scorchings look. And I won't point out every single one that I like the look of, but you'll see as I go through, they look really cool. So for Wizard, we've got one on Arcane Beam, one on Manastorm, and then one on Healing Fountain. The Healing Fountain and Manastorm ones are kind of pointless, really. They don't really do a lot, but Meteor Strike is very good. So if you played in the old days, you'll know that this little icon here, the little picture for Arcane Beam, was actually red, because this was called Incinerate, and it did fire damage. This was our fire skill. I mean, we had Fire Blast too, but or Fireball it was called. But anyway, this was the awesome single target killer, great fire damage on it, and for the longest time we wanted a fire Scorching, so we finally now got it, and not only that, but it's an awesome one. So if you look at the percent damage on these ones, Water Beam's got 84%, Cord of Terror 89%, Radiant Light 95%, and then Meteor Strike jumps up to 110. It's a big jump. It's a lot of percent damage on there, and the static damage too is 11,000, which is perfectly fine. I mean, that's going to be hitting 6 times, so it's very good. And yeah, this stands out as the best damage dealer, as well as being fire, which we didn't have a fire Scorching on this. It now has every single element on this, which is really good. So yeah, nothing wrong with this. This skill is all focused about damage, and you want the stun instead of fear, which this Scorching adds stun. Changes the fear to stun, so that's good too. Nothing I can find wrong with this. It doesn't do any air effect damage, but that's fine. And yeah, should be a lot better than a lot of people who are using Water Beam, because Water Beam is quite a lot weaker, both the static damage and the percent damage there. So yeah, for me with my Fire Water build, this will be something that I enjoy using very much. Because yeah, I've been using Water Beam at times and then Radiant Light at other times, and it's just, I don't feel like I've got a Scorching there which is going to be doing really a lot of damage for me. So yeah, this will be awesome. It might even be worthwhile using in PvP because of that good damage. If you do have the fire stat and you've been using Flame Cannon and stuff for all this time, Flame Cannon is really good. This one is going to be hitting not quite the same kind of damage. I mean, actually, maybe it's a bit off, I'm not sure, but the cooldown on this is lower, and I think when I looked at it, I thought actually I could mix this into my build. It's a ranged stun, does good damage that's fire, and using it alongside Flame Cannon may be really awesome. So yeah, keep an eye out for this, keep an eye out for when it comes in the future and stuff, try it out, should be a really good skill. Unfortunately, when you come to Manastorm, it's not so good, so Manastorm really needs a revamp. I mean, it just does almost no damage whatsoever. And the slow effect kind of isn't that useful because it just takes too long to set up and you need to like move from the location and stuff. And then it's much better to just use Empowered Frozen Sphere from distance. And then you've got the chance to miss or chance to avoid enemy attacks when you're stood inside it, which is good. It's almost exactly the same as Sandstorm, this new Scorching, except that it's not good enough with that chance to avoid attacks that actually you'll just be dying off. Like, it doesn't actually really help support you, and you need to refresh it so frequently that it's just not really worthwhile. They have got the 3% move speed on there, so if you go for that and you haven't got Stone Storm already, then you know you can get their move speed there. But yeah, I was really hoping that the damage would be changed, but you'll see here. I got knocked back when using it. I haven't actually got the right stats for this, but it doesn't matter because the stats for dealing damage in this, but it doesn't matter because it's pet damage. As you can see, everything's in the teens. And if I use Master of Ice, so then I get the auto crits, you'll see here again, it's still hitting in the teens. It's just not really going to do any damage. Just slows them. That's it. Cleansing Flame now. So this is a kind of alternative version of Healing Shrine. It does that healing boost as well again, which is absolutely necessary. And then similar-ish kind of damage. The only difference is that it does slowing instead of knocking back. Except because the chance is so low, it's not really much different. You can see that the animation looks really cool. But you'll see with the slow, it's like a little, like a black effect around them. Yeah, you can see there, black effect on some of them. It does kind of go from time to time, but it's not really the main use for it. I mean, I would really say that you'd want Healing Shrine and stuff for sitting in and tanking, because you can heal up so quickly, especially if you duplicate them. Like, you're healing like, what is it, 60% per second? Something like that. So, yeah, that's really what you want to use that for, and I would prefer the knockback to the slow in PvP too as well. So, yeah, nothing really that special going on there, but if you haven't done one of them and then sorry, haven't done either one, and then you get Cleansing Flame instead of Healing Shrine, you might want to do that just for the fire damage instead of the water. It's up to you. And I actually forgot the one really cool thing about Healing Shrine and Cleansing Flame is that the enemies actually only just need to walk through it once, and then you'll see, so they've stepped in it, now they walk outside, they carry on taking the damage for the full time. Oh, did it not work properly there? Anyway, that's how it works. So they just need to like literally walk through, and then they just keep on taking the damage. Which is quite cool. It's not crazy damage, so it doesn't really matter that much, but that was one of the things, like, back when it was released, it had loads of damage on it, and it was just insane how they just needed to walk through. Like in PvP, you just walk through it, and then there's almost nothing you can do. You're going to die in a few seconds. Anyway, I'll move on to the Archer skill runes now. So for Archer, the skill runes we've got are for Shrapnel Arrow, Concussive Arrow, and Smokescreen. Like I said previously, bit hit and miss. The miss in this one is the smokescreen one, which I'll come to in a little bit. But these two look very interesting. So, Shrapnel Arrow is an interesting skill. It does a tiny little air effect, which isn't much at all, and the whole point of it is it does the air effect and then a bit of damage over time. That was what the base skill did, and then the skill runes changed the effect. So, like, Stone Arrow just adds some nature damage on and keeps the damage over time. And then Empowered Shattering Arrow and Split Fire, they both they do the small area effect, plus then send out these balls which like damage enemies, but it's kind of randomly hitting them and doesn't actually do a lot. These actually, well, originally Empowered Shattering Shot changed it to a single target skill, so it's actually way worse than the base skill. Well, I would say worse than the base skill. But anyway, that got changed, so now it does do the air effect, and then it's got the balls flying off. So comparing it to Empowered Shattering Shot, it does very slightly more damage. It's just basically like a fire alternative. Not really that impressive, because generally I don't like this skill. It isn't that great. It does a small air effect, and all it does is a bit of damage, which, because you've already got loads of fire damage from like Scorching Arrows and stuff, you may as well just do the basic attacks. And you've got some air effect with Pierce, so yeah. I'll show it in a second, but just mainly because of the skill, it's not very good. Now, Concussive Arrow, one of the really interesting things about Concussive Arrow, it's like, it's meant to be a stun skill, so you hit them and then they stun for 5 seconds, which, quite frankly, is insane considering it's got a 6-second cooldown. But, so it's a single target thing, but then it actually does a crazy damage over time. It's 35% attack damage for 5 seconds, which makes this pretty much the same power as Volley, actually stronger than Volley, with an almost exactly the same cooldown. So this is actually, with the base skills, it's like a single target damage killer. It's better than Volley. And all these skill runes, what these change it with is, well, they change it in interesting ways. And Infinite Combustion picks out all the best points, but removing some of the stun. So basically what Dark Arrow does is it adds on a load of damage, as well as when you hit the target, it does an air of effect around the target and stuns all those enemies. It only does the 15,000 shadow damage to the enemies around, doesn't actually do, any of the rest of the damage. So it does a small bit of damage to the enemies around and stuns them all. What Infinite Combustion does is it will do the 152% fire plus the base damage to the single target, and then it will stun the single target, will not stun the enemies around, and instead what it will do is that enemy hit will do 6 lots of 15,000 fire to all enemies nearby. That area is bigger than the Dark Arrow one, so I hope that was clear enough to kind of explain what's going on here. I'll show it now in practice. Basically, you touch the target and then it starts exploding, and as you can see, quite a decent area of effect on that. It will hit lots of enemies, and that's actually a lot of damage. From the damage over time. In PvP, if you think about that, that's going to be doing 90,000 fire on top of the 152% fire from the initial hit and stuff. Like, there's no negative effects for PvP over Dark Arrow. It's just that Dark Arrow you might want for the stunning a group of enemies at once. So yeah, I I really, really like the look of Infinite Combustion. It will be a brilliant PvP skill, and for the archers out there who have been using Dark Arrow for ages and stuff because they, for ages, but then actually having more of a focus on fire, this will be a huge improvement to the damage output from this. And yeah, I would definitely say it's worthwhile doing on. I mean, okay, I'm spamming with a cooldown pot here, but you can see how frequently you can fire this, and you can get lots of fire explosions going off and start doing some very good damage to nearby enemies. May not be the totally most viable way of doing air effect damage. Oh, we're getting some lag there. But yeah, definitely this is a way to do air effect damage and to make this stun skill even better for PvP. So I'll show the split fire now. If we just attack the enemy, you can see the fireballs coming off. It does a small air effect. Oh, I messed up there. Which you can probably see it's hitting both those enemies before then the balls go out. But yeah, ultimately, because I don't like the skill, it's just not very good. That's just my opinion really mostly. And as you can see there, it only stuns the target it hits. I hope that's clear enough. You can see that guy's stunned. It actually does a very, very tiny effect. They were stood in the same location. It's a bit of desync there. But yeah, so it will hit any, if they're on like exactly the same location, then it will hit both of them. But otherwise, it just hits one target and then does the explosions. So that's those two skills. Very nice. I really like Infinite Combustion. And then we've got Lingering Smoke, which is a very big disappointment. So Smokescreen has some really good skill runes on it anyway. It's got Renew and Mist that does the 80% slow plus healing you. The heal isn't brilliant, but for PvP it can help you kind of tank a bit. And especially because you get that 25% damage reduction in PvP from this, it kind of adds up to the tanking. The main thing though is the 80% slow. So this new skill rune has that slow again. It's 75%, roughly the same really, and then adds some damage on instead of healing. Dark Mist is just the way to tank more. It gives you 50% damage reduction rather than 25, and then it makes enemies fear in PvE, which is just epic, and then otherwise gives them like a tiny stun in PvP, which is kind of a bit annoying to be honest. But anyway, Lingering Smoke adds damage instead of other ones. Now we know from previous one, the Freezing Mist, that the damage on this counts as pet damage or whatever, and so it doesn't get affected by anything on your class, anything on your character. So this is actually really, really bad. The damage is so poor. Like I could change my stats. It doesn't. My stats do not affect it. It's doing like 15,000 or 18,000 to the enemies here, and yeah, it's just basically a slow. That damage does nothing at all, and I'm going to query it because it actually doesn't even get affected by your elemental stats. So it's literally working like pet damage. It's like static damage on pet skills. So yeah, that's really poor, and I'm a bit, well, I want to say I'm annoyed, but then the skill already has good skill runes on it, so clearly they just wanted to put something on here. They wanted to do another fire skill rune on a skill that didn't have one already, that just doesn't really do much. The main one here is Infinite Combustion, which is an incredibly good skill rune. So yeah, that's the skill runes on the Archer class. Not really much more I can say, other than, yeah, just look at the fire explosions. That's quite cool. And I do think a lot of people will benefit from this Infinite Combustion. I don't know about its viability for PvE, but it's definitely some way to get the air effect damage. So yeah, let's go on to the Knight skill runes now. With the Knight skill runes now, we've got one for Protector, one for Cleave, and then one for Hurl. Like with the others, it's hit and miss, so the Protector one is kind of useless. The really exciting one here is for Cleave. Hurl one is kind of a mediocre one. So with Protector, for some reason we just don't have any good skill runes for this skill. Water's Protection is probably the best one, but the chance for that working with the heal and the damage on your basic attacks is so low that you don't really see much benefit from it anyway. Explosive Aegis is almost exactly the same as Light Protector, which is that at the end of Protector it does a burst which hits enemies, and it does that 22,000 fire as well as healing your party a bit. For some reason that healing effect just isn't happening. I'm going to query it because I think maybe it's working off base health and it's like a static number or something. I don't know. But or maybe it's just for teammates. I'll have to ask them. But yeah, basically that fire damage is so low that it just doesn't really do much. I'll show it now. So as you can see, I'm in low health and I'm invincible, so I'm not actually getting hit by the opponent. So my health is going up very slowly, and then when it triggers, you'll see a burst of fire and they'll get hit. If it does happen, there we go, that's the burst of fire. It seems to be delayed, and my health just hasn't really gone up. If you're looking at the time, it wouldn't have really gone up. I don't know why, and like I said, I'll query it. So that's that skill rune. It doesn't really do a lot. The next one to look at is Lava Spread. So Hurl is a really interesting skill because it's the only range one on the class, and it's surprisingly low cooldown, only 4 seconds, plus also good damage. So the 3 here at the top, these are the ones which you would be using. There's Frozen Shield, which does much lower damage than Lava Spread, and does a slow effect, which is quite a long slow, but not very strong. That was put in for PvP as a way to kind of slow down enemies from afar, so you can kind of catch up with them faster. But yeah, to be honest, Sparkling Gift is the best for that now, and I don't see a whole lot of use for that. Just maybe a combo with Lord of Winter, but Lord of Winter, there are better things to combo it with. Dancing Toxic, however, was the one that really revamped this skill and gave it a huge amount of damage. So if you compare the two here, the new one, Lava Spread, has slightly more % damage, but ultimately the damage itself is kind of equal. The damage over time, they both just have damage over time, and for Lava Spread this is a very small amount. To be honest, that's not going to make a whole lot of difference at all. I think it's 3 or 4 hits of that 3000, which just, it doesn't do a lot at all. Basically this is just a fire version of the skill that does quite good damage, and Dancing Toxic, however, hits that 15,006 times, so that's like 90,000 on nature damage on top of the original hit. And actually, once you pump all the numbers of it, it's almost close to the damage Flame Cannon does, which everyone knows that Flame Cannons are near one-shot in PvP if you use it on someone who's defenseless. Not against knights, but against wizards and archers. And the fact that Dancing Toxic can do that, it is damage over time, but with a cooldown of 4 seconds, is quite crazy. And yeah, Dancing Toxic is the awesome one here, and I'll just show it. I'll just show it now. If we use it, you'll see it hits the enemies, and then it emits this gas, which they don't stack, so they don't hit other ones already getting hit by the gas. But these guys out here, they weren't actually hit by the hurl, but they're getting hurt by the gas from the other ones. And yeah, if because my stats aren't done properly, if I use Enrage now, so things are critting, you'll see that Dancing Toxic wipes out those enemies. There's the water damage going on there, but mainly it's the Dancing Toxic. And you can spam it so frequently. So anyway, that's Dancing Toxic. And so this one, in comparison, is basically a fire version that's weaker. Doesn't have the damage over time, really. But if you've gone with a fire build and not a nature build, then this will be a good one for you. A very solid range, good damage skill. So if I stop getting knocked back, I will do Enrage. So now I can, I will crit with it and do a bit more damage. As you can see, it did very nice chunk of health off those enemies there. And well, I say a very nice chunk. I'm really weak at the moment, so it's not really showing properly. But point is, this is actually quite a strong skill. You can't really joke about that for the cooldown it has, and the fact that you can range, so you can run around and you don't have to be in the thick of it. So Magma Swing now. This is cool because of the damage on it. The only two that stand out on cleave are Empowered Water Cleave and Magma Swing. Wild Swing used to be really good, but like now it's slightly outmatched by damage. So like, unless you're going with a nature build, then probably you want to pick one of these two. So Empowered Water Cleave, it has the damage itself and then the slow effect. The slow effect is really useful for when you group together the enemies, they struggle to then separate because you'll be hitting them with the slow over the time, all the time. So it's really hard to tell which one of these two is better. Because I don't actually know quite how effective that slow is, like how much that actually benefits you. I'd probably say, because I prefer the water build on knights, that I would prefer to use Empowered Water Cleave. However, the extra damage on Magma Swing is definitely very good, and for the people who have done a fire build on their knights, Magma Swing would be an awesome way of dealing good damage. The damage over time there, the 5,412, that hits 5 times, I think. It's 5 or 6. So maybe it's 6 now. I'm second guessing. But yeah, basically the damage output on it is quite noticeably higher than Empowered Water Cleave, and that is very good. So I'll show you here how big the little, well, it is a small patch. We'll just wait for the huge fire animations to go there. You can see, okay, I'll put it here. Here we go. So it goes around where you are, not around where the target is. So you've got to be really close to them, and it really helps if you, actually let's get rid of the knockback effects. So if I pull them all together, and then I start hitting them, and I'll spam Sparkling Gift and Cleave, you'll see how they all get pulled in, and then basically have this fire damage over time, hitting them a lot. That's the idea of it. You pull the enemies in together, make them all stand on that fiery patch, and you can have multiple fiery patches there. They last for like 5 seconds or so, and they'll keep getting hit by those. I'm just gonna quickly clear out these enemies actually, so there are fewer to deal with. Okay, so now I can kind of show it a bit more properly. They're range enemies. Okay, they're still on this. So you hit them, and then you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it was 5. 5 hits of damage over time before then the fiery patch disappears. So yeah, that's what it is. It's a really good damage skill, and on a skill like Cleave, having 194% plus then the like 30,000 or so, if you can get all the hits on it, that is a lot of fire damage on a skill you can use every 2 seconds. So yeah, this is a really good skill rune, and should be great for everyone who's gone with a fire build. But otherwise, Empowered Water Cleave's got that slow effect that makes it unique and good for that. So yeah, that's it for all the skill runes. Just to round it all off, I realise now that I've gone through them that I said it was hit and miss on each of the classes. I think probably each class has one really good skill rune that stands out and is a good one to level, better than the other skill runes on that particular skill. And then other than that, they each have one which is kind of mediocre, that could go with a specific build, and then one that's kind of pointless. Except for wizards, which have 2 that are pointless because of the skills they're on, and there's one of them's just an alternative. So yeah, we've each done okay from this, each getting one good skill rune out of it. And on the whole, I think they could have been quite a bit better. Like there's the one on each which is like really bad could be a lot better. And but there's stuff in here which is good, and I know a lot of people who've done fire builds. I'm always kind of I never like to go for the like obvious meta. So like when I see fire way better than everything else, I'm kind of thinking like, okay, is there something else which could be viable, could be good? So like when everyone focuses on fire and good fire stuff comes out, I'm kind of slightly against it because I want there to be other good fireball options as well. So I think probably they've done a good job here of giving us one really good fire skill in each, and then some other ones which kind of aren't so good, so that then the other elements can still be viable. So I'm kind of happy, I guess. But at the same point, like I don't know, maybe it's just because I've been revising lots recently, and so I'm kind of like I can't really get my head in the games about right now. I'm kind of a bit stressed out. Anyway, I'll leave it there, and I probably won't be doing a video for a few days because like I said, I've been really busy and I have not practiced the farming technique or anything like that. So it probably won't be till next week now that I make a video. But hopefully then I'll be able to bring out some good stuff, and yeah, we'll get things going again. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.